In this video, we will install the SpeedTrigger into the TP22. Here we already have it, but I still don't have it in my pistol that I'm actually planning on using, so we will start by removing the magazine because we will not be shooting. Now, here we have the trigger and the content of the packaging, simple manual, and the trigger itself with 2 screws, set screws, and a pin. Here we can see where the screws will go and the pin itself. We will set it aside, and now let's put it in the TP22. So first, make sure there is no magazine, and if you have the hammer back, we need to release it by pointing and shooting in the right direction, or safe direction rather. We will pull this latch on the bottom and separate the slide just like that. Forward and away. All right, slide will go aside, we don't need that, and now we need to get to the trigger itself. To do that, we will remove the pins with a pin punch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pins. There we go. We remove all of them so we get an easy access. You don't need to keep track of them because there are 3 of the same length and the short one goes right here. Now this will allow us to remove the internal parts along with the trigger that we are interested in. So this we can set aside, and here we go. This is the part that we need. Now let's get the pin out, and it will basically disassemble itself into a few small pieces. And here is the trigger. That's what we are replacing. So let's quickly do that. We need to punch this pin out, just like that. We will set it aside for now. Seems like we will be using a different one. And the trigger just stays in our hands, and we can replace that with this trigger right here. Before we connect these together, let's actually put the set screws in, and here we need to use Loctite because once we adjust them to the correct position that we want, we no longer want them to, change their position, walk away, or, do something we don't want. So that's why we will Loctite these to stay nicely in place. We will take the screw glue from the NOVRITSCH maintenance kit, but any screw glue will do as long as it's not permanent, okay? Don't use strong screw glue because you might want to readjust the trigger in the future. I like to put the set screw on a bit, just like that, so I don't have to touch it. I don't want the screw glue to be everywhere. And we just put a tiny bit on there, just basically a drop into the threads. And the long one will go in here, in the trigger. Don't screw it too far, that could cause some assembly issues. Just enough that you see it coming through the side. We will wipe off the excess screw glue, and we will repeat the process for the short screw. So again, I will put it here, get a bit of screw glue on there, and this one will go in here. Don't screw it too far. This one would prevent you from assembling it. So we first assemble it, and then we will start adjusting the trigger. All right, now we have it ready to assemble it again. So we take the trigger bar, the shiny pin that came in the packaging with the trigger. I want it to sit nice and flush, and now we will tap it lightly in place. There we go. A little bit more. I'm using a bigger one so I don't go too far. Nice. Now it's nice and flush and secured in place. And now we are ready to start assembling. First we will take this small little spring, which will go in here. It has to be hooked right here in the back to make it spring-loaded. Pinch it and place it over the trigger and pinch it again like so. And now this whole thing will go back into the housing or the block. Align the holes and put this big pin back in place. It doesn't want to go, just wiggle it around a little bit. And then it will just slide in place. All right. Now this little spring, you hook it onto the trigger bar, and on this small pin on the side should look like this. Now let's verify that everything is in fact spring-loaded, which it is. And we can proceed with the trigger box. Make sure this spring didn't jump out. And we just place it right here, like so. It's going to be rather loose. Hold it together, and now drop it back. There is no force required. Everything should just pop in when it's aligned correctly. So just wiggle it around a little bit. Just like that. All right. Now, before we start assembling, let's verify the function. Okay, it's jumping a little out, but that's okay. I'm just going to hold it in place, test the function. Everything works as it should. And that means we can put back the pins. So long one, long one, long one. And the short one will go into the beaver tail area. Now I will take a bigger punch so I can make it flush. Actually, we might not even need the hammer. Yeah, it just slides in there. A little bit of force. No hammer required. And here I'm going to be a little bit more careful so I don't scratch or chip the area. All right. And now the last thing is the slide. Clicks in place. Trigger works. Now it's time to adjust it. To adjust the trigger, you will need an Allen key like this, because with the screwdriver it would be hard to get there. We might actually be able to get just a bit in. Yeah, actually works fine. So with just a bit, it's actually doable. Let's see if we'll be able to also adjust the top. So first we adjust one thing. Still fires, which is good. If we would over adjust, then it would not fire anymore. Let's try this one. And this one is quite hard to do with the bit, so we will switch to the Allen key. And this one will take off the slack. You can see when I turn it, it's taking off the slack. And now, as you can see, our trigger travel is much shorter. Obviously, I can still fine-tune a little bit, but we are pretty much there. So a bit more of this, and I think now we'll be right there. Perfect. Feels much better. All right, now let the screw glue dry. Don't play with it too much, so you get the exact adjustment, and that's pretty much it. I hope this video helped you. See you in the next one.